Rest in peace, headphone users, because in this week's episode of My Hero Academia, President Mike finally decides to step up to the microphone and display his ear-shattering quirk. And he's not the only teacher who's going to be battling against the students of UA High School. This week's episode has an assload of fights. They're all awesome, they're super strategic with lots of twists, and we get to learn a little bit more about the teachers and their individual quirks as well. And it's all leading up to the ultimate battle where Izuku Midoriya and Katsuki Bakugo are going to fight against All Might. So let's just talk about some of the highlights of this week's very fun episode. First, let me just say that this episode surprised me. I was almost fully convinced that Yuga and Ochako were going to lose in their battle against 13. Actually, no, Ochako in her incredible resourcefulness was able to take down 13 when she allowed herself to get caught by that giant gravitational pull, and right as she closed it off at the last second, Ochako just went in like a freaking badass, pinned her down to the ground, and slapped those handcuffs right on. It was a really impressive display, and what I love most about it is that it's everything that she learned from Gunhead. And hilariously enough, I love the contrast and the yin-yangness between these characters. What I mean by this is I like the fact that Gunhead is this badass-looking dude who acts cute, and Ochako is this super cute girl who acts badass. It's just really cool, and I don't think if it wasn't for Ochako that Yuga would have even passed in the first place. So, Ochako, good for you. The scene is also supplemented by the fact that nobody really knows what she was saying or talking about with Yuga except for Tsuyu. She was able to read her lips and has a feeling that Ochako is hiding something from everyone, and she just sort of pokes and prods at her throughout the episode, which leads to a lot of funny scenes of her acting all really nervous and ridiculous. But before you can even start laughing, they start up the next big action scene. Denki and Mina going up against Principal Nezu. This was a fight that I was really looking forward to seeing. One, because I wanted to learn a lot more about Principal Nezu. What the hell is he in the first place? Is he a dog? Is he a rat? Is he a human who became an animal? Is he an animal that became a human? Well, we actually do learn in this episode. Apparently, he's an animal that has a quirk which allows him to become even smarter than a human. Essentially, Principal Nezu is a super genius, and he's also one hell of a strategist, and he's able to take down Denki and Mina through not really using any superpowers, but through his intellect. That and the fact that when he does this, his true personality comes out, and he is viciously passively aggressive. I love watching him basically like turn his nose up at all of his opponents, and watching him laugh triumphantly as his tea spills all over the place with this evil look on his face. Just, man, you just can't help but love this character. And I want to learn a little bit more about his past because, according to Recovery Girl, apparently he was experimented on, like, back in the day. People were just fascinated that he's just such a unique animal that has a quirk like this, which allows him to not only associate with humans, but to become the principal of one of the most prestigious superhero schools of all time. In many ways, I get like a Rocket Raccoon vibe from Principal Nezu, the character from Guardians of the Galaxy, as he's not necessarily an animal, he's not necessarily a human, he's been experimented on, and he has a pretty high-level intellect. Nezu in particular, and he was able to take them down by basically getting in this massive, like, wrecking ball, and he was destroying all of the city around Denki and Mina, and he trapped off their way to escape, and the time ran out, which means, along with Eijiro and with Rikido, Mina and Denki are the only ones who did not actually pass through this test. We don't know what's going to happen to Deku and Katsuki going up against All Might, but it's crazy that this many have passed and only so little have actually failed. Speaking of which, moving on to the next battle, which is Kyoka and Koji going up against President Mike. Now, this scene is really great because we finally get to see President Mike in action, and as I said earlier at the beginning of the review, rest in peace headphone users, Jesus Christ is his voice annoyingly loud, and he's able to amplify it with that weird thing that he actually wears around his neck, and his quirk basically allows him to adjust his pitch and how loud it's going to be, and he can actually direct it almost like a giant beam of pure destruction. The other two reasons why this battle is interesting, of course, is that we have Kyoka Kyoka, who also has sound-based abilities. And then we also have Koji, who has got to be the most mysterious student in the class. We've never really seen him do anything or even say anything, and that combined with his incredibly weird-sounding voice and his overall strange appearance made him one of the stars of this week's episode. That, and we finally get to learn what his quirk is. He can control animals. He's basically like Aquaman, except that it extends to an even wider variety of animals. The problem is, despite the fact that he has such an affinity of hanging out in nature and with small, cute, cuddly creatures, he hates insects, and that's actually going to be instrumental in their plan to taking down President Mike. And after getting over his fears and learning what it means to truly be a hero and hearing his voice, which is very, very strange, making him sound like some weird little 8-year-old boy, despite the fact that he's in freaking high school, he's able to take control of this like massive army of creepy-ass bugs which crawl under the ground, sneak up and attack President Mike, and they're actually able to save the day. And this is after Kyoka has actually had her ears start to bleed from the power of President Mike, and Koji actually manages to pick her up and walk off triumphantly like the hero that he always wanted to be. It's very, very strange, and I'm still not sure what to feel about this character quite yet, but I can't wait to see more of him in the future and to see what type of animals that he can control, because there really wasn't anything that useful in that forest that they could have used against President Mike outside of the insects, but they took advantage of it. One of the shorter fights of the episode, but one that was also satisfying with a nice little comedy punchline at the end, was Meizo and Toru going up against Snipe. Snipe overall is just a cool looking character. I mean, he's like a weird gas mask wearing cowboy who has the ability to shoot you no matter where you're at, and his gun apparently can like blast through giant stone pillars. He's just a cool character. How can you not like this guy? But he's going up against Meizu and Toru, and basically Toru is able to utilize her advantage to be completely naked and invisible, and she manages to cuff Snipe, especially with Meizu jumping in and sort of baiting him. It actually ended up working out great, except that Snipe actually ends up, well, poking her in the boobs, which leads to a ridiculous scene. Oh, Japanese anime! You always love taking the high road when it comes to boob jokes. And then, of course, there is the true star of this week's episode, which has got to be Minoru Mineta going up against Midnight. He was partnered with Hantasero, but he ends up falling prey to Midnight's ability to make people fall asleep with the weird perfume-like pheromones which come from her body. Now, this scene is really impressive because, obviously, Minoru probably was going to lose. That's what I thought at first. I'm like, there's no way this goofy character is going to get past her, but he actually ends up coming up with a solid strategy, and that's all due to his motivation to becoming a hero, which comes into question in this episode. But Minoru does it for the ladies. If it wasn't obvious enough, he just wants to be seen as cool and loved by all of the girls, and Midnight in particular. And he comes up with this really great strategy where he actually runs away from her, which seems to just insatiate her bloodlust, which is somehow really badass and super sexy all at the same time. But he manages to actually find a piece of tape that was created by Hantasero. He puts that over his mouth and nose so that he's not going to be able to breathe in her perfume, and then he starts taking out all of his sticky balls from his head and throwing them all over the place, which gets her entangled in her whip in place, and she can't move, which allows him to make his quick escape, even saving Hantasero in the process. It's triumphant, it's goofy, it's super fan servicey, and it was my favorite part of this week's episode. So what's the rundown on this week's episode of My Hero Academia? So much fun action. One of my favorite things about My Hero Academia is how they can cram so much great creative action into a single episode. And that's what's made this arc just so damned awesome. I've loved every single second of it. Every single character has finally had some really great development, and we finally got to learn a little bit more about some of the other students who've been basically on the bench the entire time. I was impressed how this arc began with getting to see Rikido in action and learn about his sugar powers, and I'm even more interested to learn a little bit more about Koji and his ability to control animals. I had no idea what his quirk was going to be simply because of how freaking weird he looked. I don't even know why he looks that way. Like, that has nothing to do with him actually controlling animals. He's just got a weird head which is shaped like the freaking aggro crag. It's strange, man. I don't even really know what to make of it. But getting to see him team up with Kyoka and go up against President Mike was definitely one of the highlights. I would say that, and the final part with Minoru going up against Midnight was definitely my favorite part of the episode, if only for the fact that these characters are just really enduring and a lot of fun, and getting to learn about someone and their new abilities was great, But Minoru's always just a great character, just because of his visual distinction, how funny he looks, his crazy expressions. Visually speaking, this was a pretty awesome episode of My Hero Academia. It delivered on all fronts. Ochako in particular was pretty badass at the beginning. I loved when she was able to take down 13 in such an efficient and really cool manner. And of course, the build up to the battle with freaking All Might. That final shot of him, which is super detailed as he's patiently waiting for these guys to show up. And I love that the preview pretty much gives away nothing about the fight. Basically, everything they show in the preview is just like some close-up shots of their face and everything looking super intense. We don't see really a single shot of action, and I can't wait to see how it's going to play out. It's going to lead to a really great finale for the second season, and I really do pray that people continue to watch and support this show, because I want a season 3. This show has become officially addicting. And this was another great episode, which you should check out. If I did miss anything from the episode, I do apologize. There was a lot going on in this episode. Just a lot of really fun and creative action with some comedy mixed in there. Just check it out if you're looking for a super fun superhero show. This week's episode is a 5 out of 5 for me. I got full enjoyment from it the entire time. So many great scenes and so many great moments. And I want to hear from you guys. What did you think about this episode? Clearly I loved it, but did you guys gel with this episode as much as I did? Did you have a favorite fight scene, a favorite moment, maybe something you didn't like? What do you hope to see in the battle between Deku, Katsuki, Bakugo, and All Might, and the rest of Season 2 of My Hero Academia? Thank you all for watching this video. Make sure to subscribe to the channel for all things My Hero Academia related, and make sure to share this video with all your friends. It's super cool and super easy, and you could like the video too. I'd appreciate it. I'll see you guys next time. And as always, stay dandy, baby.